Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey of My Mother's Son podcast. Today I am joined by my cousin, Patty Wade. Patty, thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Glad
She
to be
was
here.
a little reluctant to jump on here, but there is a special reason why I wanted Patty to be the first family member that I did on this podcast outside of Sandy, of course. And that's because 2 years ago, when I was down here for the Krieger soccer camp. We're actually on her sister's back porch right now in Largo, Florida. At that time, they both lived up in Orlando. Patty still lives in Orlando. But we went to an event on Friday night with Krieger prior to the camp, and I'd driven down myself from Pennsylvania to Orlando. I stopped to see one of my players in Atlanta. That was on the heels of a trip I'd taken about a month earlier to Texas and Louisiana, where I drove myself. And Patty had said to me, I can see you doing what your mom did in a few years. And I just kind of shrugged it off and was like, no, there's no way I would, want to do that. So what is it that you saw that night, or knowing I was driving down there, that made you think that I might actually do something as crazy as what my mom did? And
Because you are your mother's son. What else can I say? The memories I have are of both of you, a lot of them, most of them from growing up. You were never apart.
Right.
I always saw you when I saw your mom. You were there. And then later in my life, when we went to Texas, I got to see her on her personal journey in the little car where she worked at gas stations to make a little money and slept in national parks. And Jean, I remember Jean, we had this conversation in your downstairs.
Yeah.
What I remembered about Jean and about your mom and about her travels. And so I don't even remember the original question, but I've got...
Just what you saw that you thought I might actually do the same thing.
I saw her in you, and to be honest, our whole family has this. My dad called it, there's a movie called Paint Your Wagon, and my father, there's a song in it called I Was Born a Wandering Star. So it's very easy for me to think, my father had it, he wandered all over the place, your mother did it, and Esther was pretty grounded.
But she went back and forth between like Cape May and down here in Florida quite a bit too in her later years.
And then another song in the movie is The North Wind Blows Through My Veins. You gotta go. You get to a point, like you did sit still for a very long time, but now you're spreading your wings and you're doing exactly what she did on a whole different level, in modern day.
Yeah, no, and that's funny. And I don't know if I told you this. I know I told Carol, but when your sister Debbie was starting to, do our whole family tree and everything, and she involved Sherry, my daughter, in that a little bit. And one of the things that Sherry found in doing the research of our family is that the word Wade is actually derived from the term to go.
There you have it.
So our root name
to go.
And let's talk about your brother Jim. I mean, he will just hop on a motorcycle and travel cross country for a month or 2 months or 3 months or
I think we all have our stories of our travels and our trips and our escapes and our journeys, adventures. We've all done it. And people would think you're crazy for what you're doing, but doesn't it feel so natural?
Oh, it does. I mean, I have absolutely no regrets about it. And, like I said, when you said that to me 2 years ago, I was just like, no. I wouldn't, because I was very content.
I'm so surprised,
I was very content with what I was doing. I loved what I was doing, working with kids and, improving kids' lives. And but whether it was you saying that, literally planting a seed, because it wasn't long after that where I then brought it up to Sandy.
Wow. So that's all on me, huh?
Yeah.
That's a little overwhelming, but I'm glad. I'm glad I planted the seed because look at you.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're
No
just
regrets.
no regrets. We're about 6 months into this, and literally no regrets whatsoever. I mean, again, being able to connect with you and Carole, and getting over to Aunt Sally's for a while, and spending a day and a half in your driveway, and now we'll be in Carole's driveway for 10 days, and we'll get up to Debbie's driveway at some point here in the next month or so, and we'll get out to Jim's driveway at some point too, and that's literally what my mom did. She connected with those people, family and friends.
Connected enough so that maybe you didn't speak or see each other for 20 years, and then family comes in the driveway and it's like it all washed away, and here we are, and we just pick up where we left off 20 years ago.
Yeah. So you were probably what, 20, 21 when my mom did that, around that neighborhood-ish?
Or even when she got the qualm to go across the country and stopped in Texas, where we lived. I don't even think I was 20 years old yet. Okay. I don't even think I was 19, 18 or 19. I was young, but it made everlasting impression. I'll never forget it.
I mean, at that moment when you were so young, because again, for me, I don't know that when she first told me, it didn't really resonate. It was just like, oh, okay, well, Mom's gonna, because at that point I was now living in Pennsylvania, and she had just called me and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. So it didn't have the impact on me then as what it does now. I mean, what about for you? When you were that young, did it really resonate, or was it not until years later where it was kind of like, wow, my Aunt Loretta had the balls to do this?
It was then.
It was then.
Wow. She was like, wow. I mean, I'm a female, and look at what we had to look at. We were so proud of her. Both me, Debbie, and Carole, we were all living there at the time that she passed through Houston, Texas, and it was live. It was real. I've never forgotten that trip.
Yeah, that first impression of, this is my aunt doing this.
She showed up at the door, and back then you couldn't even call. I think she just knocked on the door.
There were no cell phones.
No.
Yeah, and that was her MO, was just showing up on doorsteps, because we did it to Tink when he was in Quantico.
Yeah.
Because that was the leg we were coming down for the family reunion down here in Melbourne.
Oh.
And she picked me up in PA. It was between my junior and senior year of high school. And, we're going down through Quantico area, and she's like, oh, we're just going to, stop and see Tink. And I'm like, oh, does he know we're coming? She's like, no. I'm like, what? Here we are showing up on a, lieutenant in the Marines doorstep at like 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And of course, in my mother's true form, sends me up to the door. And I hadn't seen Tink in,
Since you were that high.
Yeah. 10 years probably at least, and so there I am, knock, never had met Deborah at that point.
Oh my gosh.
And here
How'd
I am.
that go?
I mean, it went as good as it could go. Tink opened
once
the door and saw who it was, and he was like, who is,
you remember me?
Yeah, and she sat down in the Valiant, sitting there giggling, like she thought this was funny, sending the 16-year-old up to, to knock on the door.
That is funny. That's very funny.
So, and then, Tink made us breakfast, and I don't know how long we stayed there, but it was great. He went and actually, my first buzz cut, he took me to. So I had a mullet when I walked into his house, and walked out with a very short haircut. And it's funny, I remember he took me to the place, because I was saying I wanted to get a buzz cut, and he's like, well, I know where to take you. And he took me into the barber shop, and I remember the guy looking over at me. He says, son, we only give one kind of haircut here. And again, he saw this mullet that I had, and I'm like, nope, that's what I want. And cut it off just as if I was enlisting. So, but yeah, that's, I mean, those are the things I remember of the short leg that I was on that trip with her.
Yeah.
So, it's again, to be able to do it and to be able to share these type of stories, that's the one thing that when, after the seed you planted started to bloom,
That's so awesome.
I was like, the coolest thing that, could you imagine Mom doing what she did in today's day and age of social media and being able to share those stories, as opposed to, us sitting around after she had passed and looking through her albums and reading letters and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's the little twist that I've been able to, to put on the journey and add to it.
Yeah,
for sure.
You can reach a whole new level now than you could. But her legacy traveled. A lot of people knew her.
Yep.
So even though it was the days before social media, just think of what it would have been if she was social media.
If she'd had Facebook.
If she was on Facebook, she'd blow up. She'd have to have one of those, yeah.
She'd have one of those little blue check marks next to her name.
Yeah, you can say like. You can't be her friend. Because she has so many, there's no more friends. But you can hit like and see her posts.
Is there anything in particular that, that sticks out, other than that first trip, that just sticks out about, things that she did, for her nieces? Or you in particular?
She was always cool, but she was always cool with us. But, a mother, my mom was cool with you too. So your mom was cool with us, but I saw her, she was a mom, and she was tough, and she was a Wade.
There's no doubt about that.
I remember that, but I remember my father being the exact same way. I don't remember Aunt Esther being so hard on her kids. I think everybody was different, but when it comes to my dad and your mom, I see a lot of similarities.
Yeah, and that's even something that I don't know that I honestly recognized a whole lot when they were alive. But then again, after she had passed and we're going through some of her stuff in her house, we came across some letters that your dad had written to her after he'd gone off into the Air Force. And I guess my mom was starting to, stray a little bit. And there were some pretty matter-of-fact letters from Paul to Loretta.
Really?
Setting her in her place.
Do you think they made an impact on her decisions?
I absolutely think they did. I again can't say that with 100% certainty, but I'd be shocked that they didn't.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked that they didn't. So, and so it was cool to to be able to read that and kind of see that, because it's not a relationship we necessarily see as kids. Them younger, we're part of their lives as they're already grown up and adulting and all that sort of stuff. So,
But they were as close then as grown-ups as we are now as grown-ups.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is.
Family's something.
Yeah, yeah, and that, like I said, the being able to connect with, with family during this whole thing has just been incredible, and being able to connect with friends and old players and stuff has just been absolutely incredible. So I have absolutely no regrets. Yeah, so far so good for sure. So
awesome.
We're just about out of time, but I told you the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, and it comes from the Michael Franti song Gloria, where the opening lyrics say, "When many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes." So what do you think one of the little things that Patty Wade has done throughout her life to help make the world a better place?
I hope to think that in general I'd just be kind, but that doesn't really get specific. And the one thing that popped out in my head when you asked me the question was that I adopted a senior dog when he was relinquished or given up to a kill shelter where he was going to be put to sleep as an old dog. I don't even know how old he is,
right.
But he's still hanging in there with congestive heart failure. I didn't even know what I was getting into. I thought I was getting a dog that would live a couple months, and now
right.
I've had him over 2 years.
Right.
So, and he's brought such joy to my life. But that I rescued
Yeah. That's awesome. And not only that, I mean, look at the joy that he's brought not only to you but to Carole. I can see how she interacts with him down here,
and Tim loves him.
Dog people will completely connect with that because it is a real thing. Dogs are most definitely part of our family.
Can I ask you the same question? Like, how would you answer that question?
That's funny. No one's ever turned it on me.
Interested to know before we wrap it up.
So, so I guess one of the many little things, one of the little things that I've done is just really try to keep my mom's legacy alive. Because she was one of those people who, you know, she wasn't rich and famous, but she changed lives. She changed lives, you know, going to 9/11 and, you know, that sort of stuff. She most definitely changed lives. So, thanks for spinning that on me and making me get choked up as you were.
You weren't ready for that, were you?
No, I wasn't. So touche for having to drag you in, kicking and screaming.
Yes. And I ended up being okay. My voice didn't shake or
Absolutely.
anything.
It was great. So, Patty, thanks so much. And again, folks, for those out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at danclouser.com. Patty, thanks again.
Love ya.